In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, it's the love talk. Now, I'm not going to teach you how to flirt or spit game. We're talking about love.
The podcast.
How good do you want your life to be?
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible.
This is Man vs. Marriage.
The podcast.
In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, crap, keep it in there. Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, the Q Diggity Dog, in the Moran family studio with my lovely wife, Jeannie Moran. Yeah, honey, say hello.
Hello.
There you go. There you go. You use that stank face.
You said spit game. That just does not sound attractive in any form.
Well, I said I'm not going to teach you how to spit game, but we're talking about love.
You're talking about spitting in females. It's gross.
When you a young stud, you got to learn how to get out and spit that game so the ladies will melt in your hands.
You have been around our son too much.
I talked like this before Josiah and I started palling around.
Well, you have never spit anything at me for game.
Even when I was doing all kinds of voices, I would say, baby, my day is fly.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, you still laugh and fly. That's an old Moran Brothers character there. And that was by.
It's because I can never hear it and not picture the stupid afro on your head.
Yeah, I know.
And the bounce.
Yeah, fly. That was a great character. Those were great times, even though they were tough. They were great times. So today, let's talk about love and the love talk. Let's talk about love languages. Let's give you a journey episode so Jeannie and I can tell you about our experience with love language and how Coach Rita helped us understand a little bit more about who we were and what we needed. And like Jeannie said in the last episode about needs, the love languages is really a simple way to kind of look at the blueprint of how you're wired. Now, it could be very situational, but if you're taking it and there's no like crazy chaos in your life, you should be able to get a basic count of how your needs line up. And then when you take that, I think the book is great. I listened to the book. I don't know if we read it back when we did this.
Yeah,
but I
she
listened,
had us read Gary Smalley.
But there's a ton of, if you're not religious, it really does not matter because you can I don't think there's a whole lot of religion in this particular book.
No, I think it was only in like the, there's homework towards the end of each chapter where they want you to like consider some things or think about some things. And there might be a little scripture at the bottom with a devotional or something for you to think on. But he was never really, in my opinion, it was never like shoving it down your throat kind of.
Yeah. And in this is one of those philosophies that I gleaned from my cousin Noah, which is eat the meat, spit out the bones. So take the nutrients that you can and leave the rest behind. But if you go and read or listen to the book, you hear stories about people, their marriage, what they were working through, what they were dealing with, the challenges that they had. And truthfully, some of these things are amazing. Some of these relationship transformations are amazing. So you look at the love language, and if you've done it before, look, I get it. I've had people tell me, oh, I did that a long time ago. Okay, well, it was nice if it was an exercise and maybe it made things better for a little while. But truthfully, you're only going to maximize the benefit if it's something that you keep up with. And I'm not saying you have to invest in all 5 love languages, but really go back. refresh yourself if you've done it before. If you haven't, here you go. Now, keep in mind the last episode we did based on needs. If you haven't listened to it, definitely check it out. I gave you the layman's term or the common man's idea of what needs were, and mine were mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, financial. And then I talked to you about the 6 human needs, and I basically gave you the idea based on what Anthony Robbins talks about, which is certainty, uncertainty, significance, love and connection, growth, and contribution. Now, like I told you before, I don't know if he was the originator. I just know he's a prognosticator of those things, and he has a fantastic way of opining about those and giving you some greater insight to what they are about and how they can be constructive or destructive. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. Now, for the love languages, that can be illustrated by these 5 things. There's words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. If you just go to whatever search engine you have on your phone or your computer, type in the 5 love languages, you can go and take the test for free. They'll email you the results, and then you can take those, and you could take, ask your wife to do the same, and then find out where you rank. And I'll tell you, strangely, they are very accurate, in my opinion.
They are.
So when Jeannie and I first took them years ago, mine lined out like this. Now, she doesn't have hers dialed in as directly as I do, or as accurately, because
He kept his test, so he has all the numbers on what order and how many points for each thing. I did not keep my test, but I know the order that they were in because we've hammered it several times between the two of us in conversation.
Well, just to tell you, whatever email you used, I'm sure it's saved in there, no matter which email you used.
There's over 35,000 emails in my email right now. I'm not looking for it.
I'll teach you how to search it, okay, so that you know. Anyway, when I first took it, mine lined out like this: words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, acts of service, and always last, receiving gifts. And I don't know why that is. I do know that I do not like to open gifts in front of people.
You don't?
And it makes me very uncomfortable.
And the more expensive the gift, the more weird his face gets.
Yeah. Especially if it's mine or our money being spent on the gifts, which I'm trying to work on that. Now, what they'll do is they'll tell you how many points of what to kind of show you what the gap is. Words of affirmation for me was a 9. Physical touch was an 8. Quality time, 7. Acts of service, a 5. And receiving gifts was a 1. So obviously I'm not very balanced, if that has anything to do with it, which I probably should have known before I started this show, but I don't. So there you have it. Jeannie's was physical touch, quality time, words of affirmation, receiving gifts, and acts of service, which is very interesting. Acts of service. I wonder why they didn't rank higher for you. You don't need people. I don't need nobody to help me.
No, acts of service is I think because I'm so used to doing everything. And in the time that we took this test, you have to remember the first time we took this test has been, 12 years ago? Mo was a baby. So for those other 8 or 9 years of our marriage, all those little people, I was doing their stuff. So I didn't really want people helping me. It was more whatever the kids needed. You would come and say, we've got this, which was rare. But if we did have it, it'd be like, we have this extra $100. Is there anything that we need? Or actually, it wouldn't even be we had an extra $100. It'd be so-and-so sent us this gift. And is there anything that you need or that we want to do with this? And it's always been the kids need blah. That's always been how I've done it for years. It wasn't until Rita really started picking at me. I mean, hell, it wasn't even until we went to that first hockey game. It wasn't even a hockey game. It was the autograph thing that it was just like, I'm allowed to have stuff and I'm allowed to be okay with it. And it's okay that we spent money on this. It took me a while to wrap it around my head that it was okay for me to feel good about spending money on something that I wanted for me. I was programmed wrong for a long time. I'm working on it though. I mean, I don't mind having people do things for me now, but I still get antsy about it because it takes away control for me. And I'm
Well,
like, don't let my kids clean anything in our room that's mine. Don't let the kids touch anything that's mine.
I would say
No
that
dirty faces from you.
now it's my turn for a stank face. I would say that we had a ton of help as the kids were growing up because people would come and help, and we would burn them out, and then they would disappear.
But I think the help that we got was more. It wasn't directly at me. It wasn't.
Yeah, it
you know what I'm
wasn't an
saying?
act
It wasn't
of
like
service
an act of
directly
service to me. It was
to you.
more like coming in and doing something because we needed to run an errand or we needed babysitters
Yeah.
or, you know, it wasn't because honestly, we didn't go out a lot. We didn't do a lot of things just to go do them. It takes me 6 hours to do grocery shopping and we need a babysitter. Or, you know, we have doctor's appointments and I'm going to be on the road for X amount of time and we need someone else to watch the kids. We had people that came in and helped, but it was kid geared, not necessarily
True.
for me personally. I think acts of service in this particular scenario is more like me prepping your food for you when you were on your routine and needed X amount measured out and all that kind of stuff. That would be an act of service because it was directly impactful to you.
Well, and that's what I want to look at because when I took this again, I was in the middle of that 3 years where I was having my colon chopped on and, you know, hernia surgeries to repair.
You were Frankenstein. They were just taking all kinds of stuff.
They were cutting me to pieces. And I look at when I took that because I just wanted to see, is there times in your life where these love languages can shift? And look, stick with us. We're getting to a point here. We're getting on a rabbit trail, but we are getting to a point here because it's really going to teach you connection. You know what? Let me actually just move on to our point, and then we can, you know, gab about do they change?
Whatever,
or do they
dude.
not?
You're running the show.
Yeah, I'm running this show. So when it came to understanding how Jeannie and I are wired, Coach Rita had us take this test, and then she just basically kind of focused on the top two, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the top two, like for me, being words of affirmation. You could build me up and make me a hero with your words affirming me. Just a little word goes a long way. Or if you don't say anything or you say things negatively to me, they can crush me or destroy me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that. You were not aware of that. And so we were not using language or being intentional in building that area up because words of affirmation was something that I needed to make me feel like I mattered and like I was important, or those words would give me confidence to go out and to conquer.
And it also, your need for that, I think, also kind of twisted sometimes how you heard things because you heard things in a tone or over a text or, and you just had a preconceived what they meant by that.
Yeah, that can happen in a text message or an email
Well, it happened in conversation too, but that was before we knew. Okay, this is what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I'm saying it's each one of these, if it's not met or if it's off balance per se, you can twist it yourself and not even realize that you're twisting things.
Well, think about this. You know, this is crossing my mind right now. 6 human needs. If I rank so high in significance and my love language is words of affirmation, that could be a recipe for disaster in the wrong hands.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Because, I mean, I was easily manipulated for a long time because I'm such an accommodating person. And
everybody mistook it for emotional.
well, not everybody, but people did take it for as an emotional person, which I was, and they did take advantage of it.
Uh-huh.
And then your number one was
The first time we did it, my number one was quality touch. Quality time. The second time we took it, it shifted to touch, which really those two have always been tied in my test.
Were they?
So, and again, it can be twisted when it's not being met, because there were times when you and I were, not having intimate time, and it would play with my head because I couldn't figure out, were you mad at me? Did we do something? Is there something wrong? Were we not communicating? Like, I just didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that it really wasn't any of that stuff. It was just simply that we hadn't been together in a while, and I was lacking in that area, and I needed it.
Yeah, and it's more, physical touch is more than just sexual touch. Because looking back, I can see, knowing that it was number one, or the first time you took it, number one was quality time, and then, physical touch ranked so high, and I do remember now that they were pretty much,
they were identical.
the same score. That is where I started to do things involving touch on purpose, which was coming and, if I would come home, making sure that I would wrap my arms around you, hug you, love you, give you those touches that you needed to make you feel happy, secure, safe. I actually remember that. And then quality time for us was you and me one-on-one.
Yeah. I didn't realize until later on, quality touch, or the touch was an issue because I used to sleep in Kiki's room all the time. And before that, we'd always had a rule that when we go to bed, he cuddles with me and spoons with me until I fall asleep. And then once I fall asleep, he's free to go do whatever he needs. But I just needed that to sleep, just to know that you were there and I could go to sleep. Even now, if we're not together and we're in different towns, he could call me at 3:00 in the morning and I'm still awake. Like, I don't get much sleep when he's not around. And it's not that I'm not an adult. It's just simply, I like that. I crave that when I go to bed. Quality time for us used to just be just getting out of the house. Like, if we just get away from chaos for a little while and have.
Well, at least I thought that's what it was.
Well, in the beginning it was. It really was, because there was so much going on all the time that I don't think I ever had any moment to just shut down. Ever. Kiki was up 24/7, so there really was no shut-off time for me. But then we started realizing that wasn't quality time, that movies is great, but we needed to talk. So what really worked the best, and it still is true now, is either going out on date night and sitting over a meal and just talking for hours, or the absolute most, I think, for us is when we go on drives. Anytime we go on a drive and there's nobody else in the car, we talk about A to Z with no holds barred. And it's usually those times where we just have a more intimate conversation.
Yeah. Well, you're being very kind, because you said we realized that wasn't enough, but I didn't. I thought I was in the right routine getting you out of the house, when really the lesson there is just because it starts out a certain way doesn't mean that it's okay to leave it that way, because it's important for things to grow and expand. And we were checking in I think it was during a coaching session with Coach Rita, and I was proud of myself for consistently, getting you out of the house. One of our biggest fights was who was going to arrange the babysitting, which we just constantly went back and forth arguing about. I don't know why I didn't just take that part over.
It used to irritate me because if I was in charge of it, like he would call me and say, hey, we're going to go out tonight. Can you call and get a babysitter? Okay. Spontaneity was great. Okay, we're going out tonight. We're going to have date night. So I'm all excited. And then I get left to look for the babysitter. When I couldn't find the babysitter, it just crushed me because that whole balloon just burst. And we finally had a conversation with Rita. And I was like, if you call and set up the babysitting ahead of time and then you call and tell her, hey, we're going out, the chance of that bubble being burst is a lot less. I mean, it would have to be an emergency or something that came up random.
Yep.
And then I don't go through that, downward slide of being depressed because we're not going anywhere. And I know. I think about it now and it's like, God, this sounds so stupid that I would get so depressed over not going anywhere. But
no, it doesn't.
Being in the moment of what we had going on, I come out of my skin the minute you would call and say, we're going somewhere. It's like, boop, my head goes all the way out. Okay, we're out of here. We are going somewhere. We're going to spend time together. I don't have to worry about kids. Y'all can fix this for dinner. I mean, I was gone the minute you said we were leaving. And so as soon as it crashed, it was like, ugh. And it took me into a really dark spot until we could figure out another time to go. But we just had so much. I needed that time away.
And when it got to the point where we really didn't have money to go out to eat or the movies, we kind of modified that, and it was like, okay, well, now we're going to get away to our room. Don't come knock on the door. We're going to watch a movie, or we're going to talk. We're going to eat together, and we're going to dedicate time aside. And we're going to set that time aside so it's us and it's quality time. But I was in that counseling session, and, I expected to get rave reviews because I was getting her out of the house. We were going to the movies. We were getting downtime, getting that, how do you say it? You're getting that time to decompress and veg out and just watch a great movie and then
I just needed to turn off. I needed to be able to, how did Nick put it? Switch hats. I needed to just be able to not have to be mom and not have to be, in control of anything. I could just go be me.
But it turned out that was not meeting your quality time love language, because you actually needed my attention focused on you. And I didn't realize that. Anyway, in that coaching session, I expected to get a great review, and it was like, it's okay, I guess. And I'm like, inside I'm going like, what? I'm doing exactly what I set out to do. You need to get out of the house. I'm getting you out of the house. And, I got probably offended and butt hurt, which, I love getting butt hurt. And then as she started to draw out of us what we actually needed, you actually wanted and needed my time. And for me to remain focused on you and to make you feel like you were a priority and that you mattered. And I said, something switched in me. It said, that makes a lot of sense to me. I feel like an idiot because I didn't realize what I was doing. It was all with the right intention. But what happened is it started out just getting you out of the house, but then it grew. You started to understand what your need was, whereas before you weren't really focused on what your needs were because you were busy surviving. So that quality time was not getting met. It was going unmet. Mm-hmm. And when you're in survival mode, you don't have time to stop and think, oh, I feel this way. Why? Oh, my need's not getting met. Because you're not being intentional about that. You're just trying to get through the day. Mm-hmm. And if I say anything that's not right or doesn't equal what you were feeling, or doesn't
I
kind
would
of
tell
match.
you.
Yeah, just tell me. So with quality time and physical touch, I became very intentional about how I handled my wife, because knowing that those things would make her feel loved, appreciated, and fulfilled. It would make her, those things made her feel like she was a priority, because she absolutely was a priority. I just didn't understand how she needed it communicated. And then for me, my top were, words of affirmation and physical touch. So obviously we're a match right there, because physical touch is in the top two for both of us.
Yeah, but even that, we had times where, and this is because of how I was raised to believe things. So as soon as they said physical touch, like, oh, geez, he's talking about sex. And that was one of those things that I was taught. It's a service. And it was hard for me to get past the barrier of, I'm not doing this. Meeting your need is not a service. Meeting your need is something that I want to do.
Yes.
And you're not telling me that you want to have sex all the time, although I know that's true. It was more, it's a necessity. I need that connection. But it wasn't even just sex. Quincy likes to hold hands. When we drive somewhere, he likes to hold hands. When we go somewhere, he likes to touch. Sitting in the chair, watching a movie, we touch. Our hands are touching, our arms are touching. Something is always touching. It's a need that we both have. And when we went through your hospital stint and all the different surgeries and stuff, that was kind of ripped away from us. Mm-hmm. Other than you laying in a bed and me rubbing your hair or rubbing your feet. I mean, a lot of that was taken from us, and it didn't click until you were home, and it was like, okay, we have to figure out a way, because it wasn't even sex. Sex was off the table completely for months.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, but this is still something that we both, it's a high priority. So we came up with ways around it. We put our chairs together in the bedroom so we could watch movies together. And if he's sleeping in the recliner, I could lay down next to him and at least we're touching hands. Or, we would make it a point when it was bedtime, if you could lay down for a little while, at least you were laying down and you'd have a hand on my leg or touching my shoulder, something, so that we knew the other person was there. We made it a point. I mean, quality time was met because you were home. So I was always around you, which I love having you home. It's when you're sick and you can't do things when you're home. It's like, well, it's great having you here, but this kind of sucks.
You're just a freaking lump of meat.
It's not even that. It's that you want so bad to do stuff and it pains you when you can't. And when you have to ask someone else to do something for you, it's like gutting you sometimes. Mm-hmm. It is really hard to get you to say, I need help. Now, you've gotten a lot better at it. I think that's part of the lesson that we learned in all those 3 or 4 months was you're just going to have to man up and ask somebody, because there were things that I couldn't do that needed to get done. But I also think that the things that are in your lower list of needs, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't need them, and it doesn't mean that you should not work on them. Because like we said, acts of service was small for you. At the time that you were going through your surgeries and all your healing, my words of affirmation were not that big of a deal because you were just trying to heal. You didn't need me to lift you up. You just needed to get through healing. So I took on more the act of service side of things to make sure that you were eating the right things, you were getting what you needed, that the kids were staying away when they needed to or coming in when you could handle it. Taking care of the basics, driving you places, getting you to the doctors, that kind of stuff. Things that you couldn't do for yourself. And it was hard for you, but I think it kind of got a little easier for you to accept as time went on. So now, even though acts of service is not a major need, it's not something that you're like, ugh. It's like, same with receiving gifts. You still have a hard time with it. But I think now that you've recognized you have a hard time with it, you kind of purposely set yourself up when you know
Yes.
you're receiving gifts to say, okay, just accept it. Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Because now he's paying attention to the kids' faces when you open something. Because when they started getting vocal about stuff, it's like, well, when we give you something, you always go, I'll open it later. And so the last 2 Christmases, they're like, no, you and Mom are opening together at the end. Mom goes first, and then Dad goes, and we're all staring at you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to shake you out of this. But it's a good thing, I think, because now you're seeing how they react to seeing you open something that they've poured their heart into, or that they've helped me sneak around to get, or, you know.
Well, that's the thing about opening gifts in front of people is I'm really worried that I'm not going to have the right reaction and it's going to disappoint somebody.
Oh, I know. You know what our girls tell me? Oh, that's cool. Because that's my response to a lot of things when I open it. And it's not that I don't like it. I am not good at expressing gratitude for something when someone gives me something. I'm not used to receiving things. So it was kind of weird. You know, growing up, we had big Christmases and we had a lot of gifts. But when my grandmother would spoil everybody, every time it would come to me, it was like, I don't need anything. I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I never did. I always felt like I was being greedy. And it was something that I grew up with watching, you know, between my parents. If my mom did something for herself, she hid it. If my dad did something for himself, they hid it. And then when it came to a head with money, it was a greed issue. So those things were ingrained in me growing up. I didn't want to be the greedy person.
Right.
And I have family members who had money. Excuse me. And they used that to hoard over people. You know, you do this for me and I'll pay you. Okay, cool. But then later when you need them to do something, it's like this weird, I don't even know how to explain it. Money was just a weird thing growing up.
Mm-hmm.
When you didn't have it, you were looked at a certain way. And when you did have it, you were looked at another way. And there was no in between. And I didn't know how to do that. So for us, when people give me stuff, it's like, I appreciate it. I just don't know how to say it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like lock down a little bit. But even you, what was it you gave me? I forgot what it was. You came out of the bathroom, you're like, doesn't like to receive gift, my butt. And I don't even remember what it was because I got so excited. I can't.
What year was it?
It was in this last year, and I can't even think
Oh,
of
well, I know for sure it had to do with your clothing that I bought you that was customized to your book. And then there was another, that retro jersey that I bought you.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
it was
the
the
king.
retro jersey. I opened my retro jersey at Christmas, and I squealed. And I don't usually do that, but I got really super excited. And
Well, to top that off, I had you open some of your Kings of Fury stuff, and you said swear words. And I was like, yeah, I know that's good now. I was like, heck yeah, baby. Well, speaking of, looking at my journey through the 3.5 years or so of surgery, I decided to take the love language test again to see what it looked like. Now, just to line that real quick, words of affirmation was a 9, physical touch was an 8, quality time was a 7, acts of service was a 5, and then receiving gifts was a 1. That's the first time I took it. The second time I took it, which was going through that period of surgery due to diverticulitis, quality time was a 10. Acts of service was an 8, whereas before it was a 5 and it was 4th on the list. Physical touch was a 6. Words of affirmation went all the way down to a 4, and then receiving gifts was last. It doubled though. It was a 2 instead of a 1. And I think it was very interesting because I knew going into it that one of the most important pieces of it. Now, I thought I was just going to have one surgery and I was going to be done.
yeah,
And that didn't happen.
no.
It wasn't even 2. I think it was 5 surgeries. I mean, it's more if I include all those
You had
drains.
5 surgeries and like 8 stays.
Yeah, it was crazy. But I knew going into that as far as the mental side went, that would be the most important piece for me to build and to stay strong and to have a routine for, so that physically my body would heal. But I went into it saying, I've got to build myself and get myself through this mentally, which in my theory is why words of affirmation went down, because in prayer and meditation, in those times, I felt like, being a man of faith, the Holy Spirit was giving me words of affirmation to really build me during that time. So I don't know why it went down lower. I just know it was something I took upon myself. But quality time shot to a 10. And it was first as opposed to being third. And of course, acts of service was a love language to me at that time, because I couldn't do anything for myself. Very, very little.
It was a need. Yeah, it was a big need.
And I don't know of a time aside from, when I was born, that I was more vulnerable and needed so much help. And the family, they stepped up and y'all helped me so much. But I did get more time than I've ever had with the family.
Mm-hmm.
It grew closer to the kids. You and I have been tight for a long time, but, we still got to spend our time together when I wasn't sleeping. I just think it's really interesting that, quality time and acts of service became the big thing.
I think,
but it's what I needed in the moment.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that they necessarily change all the way, but I do think that it's important to reevaluate them when things are changing. I mean, look at the COVID situation and everybody getting put on lockdown and not being able to do a lot in the beginning of everything that happened. Quality time, everybody was like, oh, go for walks with your family, go for bike rides, spend time with your family. Okay, that's all well and good, and I have nothing against it. But I need time with my husband. And time with my husband, when you can't go anywhere, and our typical date night is to get up and get away from the family and have quality time conversation and, make plans. And because that's a lot of our quality conversations is us planning. Whether it's a book, a vacation, a sports season coming up, things for the kids, places we want to go visit that year. We are always talking about things we want to do and how we want to do it, or things that we've just done and what we took away from it and what do we want to do with it. And we had just come out of that marriage conference. We had just started looking at, list things that you haven't tried together that you want to try together. We had a list of things, going to a winery and a paint and wine night and random things. And then now you can't go anywhere. You're not allowed to go anywhere without a mask. Nope. Now you just can't go anywhere because everybody's closed. And now you have to stay home with your kids, and everybody has to be home with the kids. And no matter what you do, there's the kids. And it was just like,
kids are awesome. And
I love my children.
We have tons of kids.
But
if you're a parent, there's times where you just need a mental break. I don't know. Maybe if you only have one kid, and that kid's independent and you see him every couple of days or some crap like that. But I'm weird. I have evolved since those surgeries because I would rather be home. Put this aside. If I have the opportunity to go somewhere with you, I'm going somewhere.
But that's the difference. That's what I'm saying. We had a set routine.
Yeah.
We had date night once a week, and once a month we went away for at least a weekend. 1 weekend a month. And it took us years to get where we could financially and care-wise for the kids succeed at that.
Yeah.
It was never available before. So here we've had a little over a year of, I've got a weekend away this month. And you have no idea. Well, maybe you do. If you can do this. My mindset and my mental health was so much better knowing I don't care what happens in these other 26 days of the month.
Right.
I get these 3 away and a drive day.
And that's true because we had to modify things because of childcare. So we stopped getting our date night. We kind of tried to do date night at home. That's when we kind of started piloting that program. But we did get to go to hockey. And I remember you saying, as long as I have this to look forward to, I can sacrifice X, Y, and Z because I have this time that we're going to go and get to be
I'm
together.
still getting the same amount of time together with you. So even if we didn't do a date night every week, I'm still getting at least 3 or 4 days. But in those 3 or 4 days, we don't just do hockey. We go out to eat. We spend time in the hotel. There's lots of sex, which is great. But we also have a lot of conversation that we don't normally get to have
Yeah.
without all the interruptions or a teenager piping in their 2 cents. So that for me was really, really important. And I think when things like that happen, it's important to go back and double check your love languages, because it's not that it's changed. If they're not, I don't think that you as a person change so much that your needs are completely different. I just think that in the season, things shift. I mean, when you were going through your surgeries, things shifted. Physical touch was not available to us in the way that we really needed it. We had to adapt.
Yeah.
What do you need that's going to still show you that I'm here, that I love you, that you are important to me, that you are appreciated? How do we do that? So even looking back at times when I was in the hospital with one of the kids, I needed the affirmation and the moral support, because I was up against people who are looking at me like I'm stupid because I don't have a doctorate. But I know my child.
Mm-hmm.
And when people want to push and give me crap about our kids, I'm the biggest bulldozer in the room. But I was struggling because I'm by myself with her, and I've got 12 other people telling me what's going to happen. But I know that I know that I know. So when I would call and talk to you, what I needed the most was exactly what you gave me. No, babe, you know what's going on. You know what's right. You're going to push for this. And if you need me to step in, it's like I just needed that extra. You believed in me and what I was doing was right. And I can push forward if I know you've got my back. But it's just in the moment that those things might shift a little bit.
Agreed. And that's one of the beauties and one of the lessons that we have taught you, Man versus Marriage Nation, and that Coach Rita taught us, which is, what does that look like? Great. My number one love language was words of affirmation when I took the test. Great. What does that even mean? I affirm you, Quincy Moran. Okay. Cool, bro. But if it's like, I'm struggling, or, hey, honey, you did great there, or that was great. Or even, I'll just put this out there. During sex time, getting that feedback that was an awesome orgasm.
That was not where I was going to go, but okay.
But I'm just being blatantly honest.
I can give you an example that maybe you wouldn't have thought of.
Okay.
We were having a conversation with our son the other night, and Quincy got a little emotional. And then he turned around and apologized for getting emotional. And immediately I corrected that to say, don't ever apologize for being emotional, because the boys need to see that. They need to see that it's okay that you have a heart, that something pricks you. They need to see that, yeah, you're hurt about this, but your hurt over one son is what opened your heart to help another. You get what I'm saying? And it was the affirmation you needed in that moment, because I saw it. You were starting to dig on yourself for how you were feeling and why you were feeling that way, and showing your son that you feel this. And it's like, hold on, wait a minute. Disappointment happens.
Yeah.
Hurt happens. Being pissed off and putting yourself on the line and having somebody squash you, you don't always have to get pissed about that. It's okay to feel the pain of it. And they needed to see that. He needed to see that, because what we've gone through with him and with others, he's seeing it, but I don't think he understood the impact of it. But seeing the emotional response I think he saw the impact of it. This isn't just me saying, I want you to do this, this, and this, and I want to trust you. This is me telling you, when you break that trust, this is what it does to me. This is how it feels. And I think it's important. But watching you start to do the downward spiral, even the conversation we had the other night where you were feeling bad about your own failures in the past with being a dad and things that we've dealt with, just having that moment in that conversation to reaffirm to you, yeah, I get where you're at because I've been there and I'm going through the exact same thing, so I understand it. But look at all of these things you have done as a father. That's the affirmation. It's reminding the other person of the great things that they've done, that you've seen, that you've walked out with them, or maybe that's going on in the moment. Point it out, because those are the things that fill them up to say, oh, brownie points. Okay, that was good. I did something good there. And it's not like, give a dog a bone or anything like that. It's just simply those are the things that you hold on to when something goes to crap. Those are the memories that you go to is, yeah, but I remember you telling me this and it helped get me out of this funk. How many times in a work day have we had those conversations where it's like I had sent some stuff to you at work and you just happened to pull that one paper that day and it was like, okay, my wife says this. So screw whatever this is. My wife says this.
Yeah. And make no mistake, give a dog a bone. Because as long as it's authentic, I take it and it matters. And that's in my spiritual journey, I do get built up. That's part of something that when those words come and they are infused in me about belief, and then I start to believe in myself and I affirm myself and build those up, and then hear that you or the kids or people believe in me, that still builds me. Even though it may not be top shelf, it's still very impactful, because when I do something great and people give other people the credit, it affects me negatively, or it has, until I took a step back because I knew it burned me. I took a step back and said, well, who will you allow to give you those words of affirmation? Who will you allow those words to have impact? Who has the credibility to speak those words of affirmation that matter into your life? And that was a great shift for me to say, no matter what your words are, I'm not going to allow them to affect me positively or negatively, because there's a select group of people that get the privilege, even though that sounds terrible, they get the privilege of saying what matters to me.
It's not a bad thing. Those are called boundaries.
That's true.
You have a set. I'm the same way. I have 5 people in my life, literally 5, that no matter what mood I'm in, no matter what circumstance it is, they have the right at any time to call it as it is. And no matter how pissed I might get, no matter how emotional I might get, no matter how sappy, whatever, those 5 people are the only people who have a complete pass to say it, and I will take it as 100% gold. I can guarantee you whatever they're telling me, I trust wholeheartedly they're not going to lie to me and they're not going to manipulate me. Other people, I might take it and value it, but if I don't have full trust in you, I'm going to eat the meat and spit out the bones. Yeah. It's just a learned thing. I had to put up boundaries because everybody has this, but if you have too many voices speaking into you, how do you know which ones are real? Right. And which ones are telling you things because they know who the core of you is? The 5 people in my life know me, good, bad, ugly, and whatever. They've seen me at my best and my worst, but they've been there every single time. Yeah. The ones that have come and gone, they don't hold a hell of a lot of weight.
And they shouldn't. And the fact is they shouldn't. And that took a lot for me to learn. Whether it whether it's family or people in positions of authority, celebrities, athletes, popular professional athletes, whatever. You have to decide who has the right to speak into your life and what credibility you give to them. Just a quick lesson at no additional charge that has been of value to me.
Mm-hmm.
This episode, somebody put the brake on the gas, took the brake out, and it is flying down the highway. So we're going to have to close this one out.
That's okay.
I had a good time with this episode. I think there's a lot of value in there for our Studley listeners, and I want you to get your tail over to whatever search engine you use and go to the 5 love languages. Take the test. If you've taken the test in the past, go against the grain, take it again, see where you are in life, okay? And then get with your wife and start to learn. If she has some time, ask her to listen to this episode. If you're a wife, have a husband listen to it. Yada, yada, vice versa. Let us know what we can do to help you. I hope this might be one of those episodes where you're going to have to go back and listen again just to get some of those clues dialed in so that they will help you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. You're a super stud. You're part of an elite class of human beings on the face of the earth because you listen to Man vs. Marriage. I am the Q Dog, Quincy W. Moran. She is Jeannie Moran, and this is Man vs. Marriage.
The podcast. How good do you want your life to be?
You gotta live on purpose, for a purpose.
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.